Hello, and welcome back to the Holistic Hatha Yoga podcast. I'm your host, Kelsey, and I am so happy to be here with you guys today. I hope this is finding you well. Happy June. Oh my goodness. I cannot believe it. I feel like, I live in a place where we very much have all four seasons, in I don't even know how to say this, but just each season gets very much that season. Our winters are very hard. Our summers are very beautiful, and our spring and falls are exactly what you would imagine them to be as well. So I just feel like, January to June, it just goes like so slow, but so fast all at the same time. It's a very weird feeling of just like, wow, oh my gosh, it feels like someone drew back the curtains, the sunshine's pouring in again, and we're like, oh, we are alive and there is an outside world, and so a lot of that has to do with that winter energy of like just the coziness and staying home and conserving energy and just kind of hibernating in a way. And then once summer hits in this full-fledged way, it's like, wow, I remember what it's like to step outside again, breathe in the fresh air, and partake in a world where it's lush and warm, because it's different. Not that we don't go outside in the winter. We 100% do. We go out and we play and we gear up and all the things. But that's the thing about it, is that in order to go enjoy that winter, you must gear up. You must layer up. You must put on so many different things just so that you can survive out there for any amount of time, let alone comfortably and have a good time. So, it's a lovely time to be alive here in northern Michigan when the sun starts staying out till 10 o'clock at night and everything is just blue skies, beaches, sand, fresh water, and pretty glorious. I've seen some really, really beautiful birds already this season. I'm here for it. I'm excited for this summer energy to be upon us. What else have we been up to? Last week we did a live masterclass. It was a nervous system reset called Quiet the Noise. If you were not able to attend and you wanted to, I do have that recording. It's 1 hour, almost exactly. And that is available on my website. It is $25, so you can go purchase that if you wanted to do it and couldn't fit it in your schedule. And you can watch it as many times as you'd like after you purchase. So once you have the link, you can use that link forever. But that class was really, really awesome. I absolutely loved it. The people that were in there had sent me really lovely messages afterwards, just saying how much it helped them, whether they were going through physical stress or emotional stress or a mix of the two. It was really great. It was some powerful stuff that we did in there in that 1 hour class. It was things that we don't get to touch on in a typical yoga class, so there is no asana portion to it. There's no postures or anything. It's not like a asana yoga class. It is a pranayama class, where we are working with the breath and breathing, and that's all we're doing for that 1 hour. So if you're like, I don't want to do a bunch of exercise for 1 hour, this is not the traditional yoga class 1 hour. This is totally different. And so, it was amazing. I felt amazing for the next couple days after that, because the breath work that we did in the order that we did it is just such a magical little potion there for really getting into your deepest layers of being and then kind of illuminating or going from that place, from that inward place out. And it was just super beautiful. So if you want to take part of that, just go to my website, holistichthathayoga.com, and it's on the courses page. There's the nervous system reset course, and that's like a 14 video course, but underneath that is just the nervous system quiet the noise masterclass, and that is the 1 hour masterclass if you want to do that. So Anyway, so this week on the podcast, I'm very excited. We have a very fun guest, and he is a hypnotist. And so he's got a very interesting story where he came from um, kind of more of a business background and had some really big life changes and then moved into this hypnotherapy realm. I love this conversation because it talks about how um, how powerful our subconscious mind is, and how when we work with our subconscious mind, we can get some really big results in our real life. So that's really like what we're talking about here in this episode. So without further ado, let's get into the interview.
All right, welcome to the Holistic Hatha Yoga podcast. And today we've got Peter McLaughlin, and he's with Blue Sky Hypnosis. So I'm super excited to talk today about healing trauma and your unique take on it. I absolutely love the idea of hypnosis, and just like because I know I don't know a ton about it, but I do know just as far as the depth of working with the subconscious and even the unconscious mind and how powerful that is, almost more so than working with the actual conscious mind. So with that, I'll let you dive right in and tell us a little bit more about yourself and your story and kind of what you do for people.
Okay. I guess where I'd pick it up is that distinction between the subconscious and the conscious mind, and why it's important for people, why they should care. And if you can imagine yourself as a human being in a human body riding on top of an elephant, and you and the elephant are very happy because you're both going in the same direction, the direction you want to go in. But then you want to make a right turn, and to the right is a river and a bridge, and the elephant is afraid of the water, and now it's not going to go there. This is where people run into problems, is when there's a disconnect between their conscious desires and, let's say, their subconscious fears. And the subconscious is that much more powerful than the conscious mind, the elephant to the human body, that you cannot win a battle of wills with the elephant. You have to find a way to get the elephant to feel comfortable about making that right turn, crossing over that water, or else you're going to struggle for your whole life with it.
Yeah, I absolutely love that visual. That's an amazing visual because, like, have you ever ridden on an elephant in real life?
I've never ridden on an elephant, no.
I have once as a child, and at a circus actually, back when they allowed those things. But I just remember like the awe that I felt of just like this massive creature, and you could feel, each step and like just how much effort it took to even turn. We can turn on a dime and we're pretty agile as small creatures. But this elephant, like you're saying, like your subconscious, like that's a hard creature to steer. And like if it doesn't want to go that way, there's no changing that. There's no amount of willpower that's going to switch that. And so I absolutely love that visual because you're right. I've been there myself, like trying to even just make small changes or little things here and there. And if your unconscious or subconscious mind is not on board, it will come up with every reason in the book not to do that or not to move forward. So
and a lot of times people, so this ties in with the phrase self-sabotage. That people will talk about how they're really good at self-sabotage, or it happens to them all the time, or it's so frustrating. And I don't actually believe there is such a thing, or if there is, it has to do with like self-hatred. But for the average person, what feels like self-sabotage really is the subconscious mind trying to protect you, usually from a threat that doesn't exist, either in that moment or it no longer exists. Something like PTSD.
Right.
So even with something like weight loss, which is such a major problem right now in our culture, that people will be going along on a diet. Everything's going fine. They're starting to lose weight. And then all of a sudden it's like they hit some kind of wall and they binge. Well, the binging could have something to do with the subconscious mind believing it's not safe for you to go below a certain threshold of weight. And you might ask, well, why would that be? And it could be because that person, let's say, was sexually assaulted when they were a child or sometime earlier in their life. And the subconscious wants this extra weight as armor, as distance between them and a would-be attacker. Maybe it's afraid that if the person gets to a certain level of radiant health or beauty or whatever, that they'll be more likely to be attacked. And I'm not saying that's what it is in every case. It isn't. Right. But that's an example of why the subconscious could say, we don't want this. Elephant doesn't want to cross over that bridge, doesn't want to cross over the river. Right,
because I mean, to a certain extent, being visible is putting yourself into danger. You know, if we take it to like an animalistic view and your own instincts, if you're just standing out in the open field and there's nothing around to guard you or to hide you, you are an open target. You know, just naturally we understand these things. You know, if you've ever stood in the desert, you know what it feels like to be like, I'm the only living thing that I can see and notice. I know there's other living things around, but I can't see them. I don't know where they are, and I don't know where the next attack or threat is coming from. So yeah, 100%. Because once you start kind of uncovering these patterns, you know, that's really all they are, is patterns of like how we've learned to survive. And so it's just like, well, yes, that served us at some point, but does it serve us right now in this grouping, you know, in this instance, moving forward?
Yep. And then the next thing would be, if you notice that consciously that you're safe in a particular circumstance, that the threat is over, but you're still reacting as if, now you know you have to rewire, you have to reprogram the subconscious mind. You essentially have to update the software so that it recognizes that that threat is no longer a legitimate, viable threat.
Right. And so how is the best way to do that? Because I think people battle the overthinking and the anxiety and the monkey mind and just being awake and being conscious. So, like, I guess what's the path of least resistance here, you know, when it comes to reprogramming? Because, like, I don't know how to say this in a kind way, or soft way, I guess. But yeah, humans don't like change. And even though we have neuroplasticity in our brains, meaning we can make these new neural connections and we can make a new story for ourselves, we really like to stay in those same connections we've always made, you know, and we don't really like to branch out. So where's the easiest spot where we can kind of let our guard down and start inviting these new thoughts that might bring us to a healthier frame of mind?
Yeah, I would say 3 steps. One is awareness. So Carl Jung, the famous Swiss psychologist, said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. So that's step 1. You have to have some kind of an awareness of what's going on, rather than, as he said, just saying it's fate. You're just unlucky. This is the way your family is. This is the way it was meant to be. You're not allowed to, whatever, fill in the blank.
Right.
And then the second thing is to pinpoint the moment at which this phenomenon was created, because you are an eternal spirit.
Right.
Even if you've been living with this pattern for several lifetimes, which is probably not likely, but it's possible, that it wasn't always this way. There was a moment in time at which something happened, let's call it a trauma, and your mind made up a story to protect you, that it's not safe for you to be, you know, radiantly beautiful. It's not safe for you to be thin, to have an athletic body or something. And then And then it's important to resolve that old trauma in your subconscious mind, keeping in mind that your subconscious has no concept of time. Everything to your subconscious is now. Everything. And that's why it treats things that happened 40 years ago or 4 lifetimes ago as a clear and present danger. And this is what we see with people with PTSD. The soldier could be 15 years out of the military, 5,000 miles away from Iraq, 15 years older. But when they get triggered, the body responds as if it's a clear and present danger. And that's because the subconscious, which controls the body, has no concept of time. So that original, that precipitating wound has to be healed in the subconscious mind. Wow. And then I would say the third step is what I would call tending to your garden. There has to be, just like with physical fitness, let's say, or physical health, or a yoga practice, you can't just get to a certain level and say, okay, I'm done.
Right.
I never have to do anything anymore. There has to be some kind of maintenance, some kind of tending to your garden, some kind of process where, every couple of days you go out and weed it, you water it.
Right. And if you don't tend that garden, it gets rampant again, because like you just said, there is no one thing where you did it and you're like, I'm done. Life is fixed. Exactly. It's all good, because we're living in this constant ever flowing present moment, And so, there is no, oh, it's fixed now. It's like you always have to come back and tend your garden, because things will unknowingly creep up in there. And but the more that you practice that tending, and the more that is a daily tending, there's not that much to tend. If you've ever actually gardened, if you're actually out there daily, it's never really that hard to weed. However, if you've left that garden for 3 seasons, it's gonna be wild. It's gonna take you probably a couple weeks to get that thing ready to even start to grow stuff, Yep. And that's exactly how our bodies work too. And we, I've spoken to this to some people who are starting meditation, and they might have a lot of these traumas that they've never addressed. And so they're like, well, I don't like meditation because I don't like to sit, and I don't like to, see all this stuff bubble up for me, and it's too overwhelming. I can't do it. Give me something else to do. And I'm like, sorry. Get back to the mat. That's your job right now. That's what you have to do. You have to let that stuff bubble up, see what happens, recognize it, sit with it, let it tell you it's not going to kill you, look at it in the eyes, and then it kind of magically disappears once you actually look at it, So, and then after you've done, you've come to your practice and you've done this and you've let the things bubble up. After that, like you just said, it's attending to your garden. It won't always be a big trauma dump session every time you meditate. It might the first few times if you haven't been tending to your garden, but after you've let that kind of flush through, it is more of just a relaxing, connecting to your inner spirit, because there's not all these stories between yourself and your inner spirit that's blocking that path, So I totally get that. And with addiction as well, I think people are on the same thing. It's not safe for me to be sober or whatever, because then I feel XYZ emotions. And so to get back to that sobriety and be like, okay, things are okay here. Things might have been traumatic in the past, and I might have been in a perpetual state of escapism, but we can set that down and write a new story, a new neural pathway that's safe for us to be present with.
Yeah. And there's a reason why we have always been drawn to stories of courage. Because we know that we are all on what Joseph Campbell called the hero's journey. And we know that we too eventually have to face our demons. That we can't run from them forever. And that, like the Wizard of Oz, when we finally do confront them, you said this yourself, that they tend to diminish pretty rapidly because
Shockingly.
we feed them through our fear. We feed them by running away emotionally, physically, with our attention, and so on. And I think there's an ancient part of us when we witness another person exhibiting courage, even if it's fictional, that gives us the hope that we will be able to do it too.
100%. 100%. I just finished a book on the history of Queen Cleopatra. And oh my goodness, the wild power that she really like held on to, especially as a woman in her time, being ruler, being queen, and just ran with it, was so inspiring. Like you're saying, like it's just like that hero's journey. And her story didn't end up great, but she still died with dignity and honor and as a royal, as royalty, instead of becoming a slave to whatever was before her. So, but I digress. But going back to just like our conscious and our subconscious, and being able to like work with those two things to be able to find a more healthful place or foundation to be based off of. I want to hear a little bit more about your story as far as like you had a very serious health issue or disease or scare, whatever you want to call it, with leukemia. And like, what was your take on that? Because I'm sure there was a lot of fear that got built up, but then obviously how did you handle working through that and overcoming that fear and moving yourself into a healthful state of mind, even though people were obviously on the outside telling you you're not healthy, or, you might experience these things for the rest of your life or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it wasn't easy. It wasn't an easy path, but I ultimately got to a place where I recognized that it was necessary to get my attention, that I wasn't paying attention, that I was asleep, and that I needed to be hit with this spiritual 2x4 to get me to pay attention and to recognize that the path that I was on was not what I came to this place to pursue, to do, that I was walking down the wrong road. And for me, and I think it has to do with stubbornness, it required something that was life-threatening, because I'm certain that there had been many other messages along the way that were not as dramatic, that I just systematically ignored. And this is one that, for me, I couldn't ignore. And my exhortation to everybody would be, pay attention, listen, because you may hear a message before it gets to a place that we would consider to be a crisis.
Yeah, 100%. And I appreciate your honesty on that, and just the fact that you embrace it as a message, as a reroute. I think sometimes people are like, but I didn't want to manifest the bad thing for me, or like, I wasn't intending for that to happen, or like, don't say that I called that upon myself. That wasn't me. I didn't deserve that, or whatever. And it's like, I'm not saying anyone deserves anything. All we're saying is that everything is feedback and everything is some sort of energetic message, and they get more intense if you're not listening, I had the same thing happen or similar, I guess, when I was doing way too many things, all at once. And I was working out of my, just too many things, working out of my masculine, really kind of shoving my feminine away of just like, nope, we're just going to get it done, get it done, get it done. We were doing house renovations. I had kids stuff going on. I had a career going on, all these things, I was pregnant. So I was also building my third child, at the same time. And all of these things, I had all the engines firing, and then my left knee blew out completely. And and being pregnant, I couldn't then go and do surgery or anything. I had to wait till after the pregnancy was over, and then wait post, 6 weeks to then go under the knife and do all the things. But that situation hung me up in so many ways for well over a year, because then the rest of my pregnancy I had to wear a special knee brace. I couldn't walk on that leg, and just all of these things. And and when you look at the human body, in Ayurveda, they say like the left side is the female side, the right side is the male side, kind of goes along with the sun and the moon, and all about our balance, our internal energy balance. And after I obviously had a lot of time to sit on the couch after surgery and things. And I was just like, it was my left knee, which is like the feminine side. The knee is such a vital joint when it comes to just our everyday mobility and all the things. And I just really had to come to realize, like, I kind of did do it to myself, and there was a lot of steps along the way where it was telling me, like, you're going too much, you're pushing too hard, let it be easier, let the help come. And I didn't. And I paid for it physically and mentally and emotionally for a very long time. But, you heal, you learn, you move on, and then you take those little whispers a little bit more seriously moving forward in life, because you're like, oh, hang on, I should follow this nudge, because I don't want this to get loud. Because when it gets loud, there's big disruptors, big change. Not that we're not already making change every day, but there's dramatic change and there's slow, sustainable change, and it's a lot nicer to take that initiative and move with the slow, sustainable change than take the big life pivot reroutes. So I'm glad I'm not alone in that, for sure.
Oh, no. No, you're not alone. And one of the things I wanted to follow up on is when you were giving that hypothetical person's response of, I would never call this in on myself. They're speaking from their conscious, their persona, their personality. And personality, that word, is based upon the masks that Greeks wore in theater 2,000 years ago.
Yes.
That's the personality. That's the person.
Right.
Personality,
persona.
Right, exactly. Exactly. And they're leaving out their subconscious mind. They're leaving out their spirit, their soul.
Yes.
Like, all of that isn't the part of us that we identify with on a day-to-day basis.
Right. And I think that's a huge issue in the United States specifically right now, is like that spiritual connection is gone. Like, it's just
you called it a spiritual drought. I saw that somewhere. You used that phrase, spiritual drought, which I really liked. I like that a lot.
Thanks. Well, it's so true, because your spirituality is like water. It is something that we need to survive. And it is something that really has been stripped away from us in a lot of different ways. But I think it was really systematic as well. I think there was a maybe not great plan behind that, to make people lose themselves and to make them find themselves and their joy in consumerism and in their ego and in the I deserve that culture, let's get myself a little treat culture, like, and that's how I feel better. Like, that's not sustainable or healthy or has anything to do with us being humans. And I just feel like I just spoke with someone else who was like, she grew up in Chile. And she's like, the thing that's different between the United States and where I grew up was that where I grew up, like, it was never a question of whether like energy was real or your spirit is real or entities are around us or this weird magical thing that we're part of. Like, everyone just knew that was a thing. Yeah. And we're all part of it and we're all working with it, and karma's coming, and just work with your highest good in your mind and good things will come. She's like, the United States, like, there is no basis. You get kind of looked at funny, or you get, oh, that's not real, or you get you must accept Jesus Christ, in order to move forward in life. Like, you get all these very weird messages that have nothing to do with finding your own sovereign power and your own connection point. And that's really sad and really scary. And I think that's why it's so easy for the American people to be up in arms and back down and back up in arms. And it's so chaotic because there is no center point for people. That isn't a war zone, because anytime we start talking about spirituality, it's who's right. Is it this religion? Is it that religion? Is it the Christians? Is it the Jewish people? Is it Islam? Is it Hinduism? And it's none of it, It's none of those things. It is all of them. And when we can recognize that, I think that's when you actually start to recognize the godliness within yourself. And I think all of those religions are just trying to tell you that your own consciousness is the key. Your own essence is your direct connection. And all of these books and all of these ways are literally just standing between you and your connection, And so I know that religion is powerful. Obviously, people have been killing in the name of it for thousands and thousands of years. But if we can flip that script and just into literal acceptance of just, it doesn't matter how you explain it, just know that it's there and work with it, however that comes for you, easiest for you, whether it's through Christ conscious energy, whether it's through the many gods of Hinduism. Just open and acceptance of other people's viewpoint, and that we're all talking about the exact same thing. Mm-hmm. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does. I mean, the way I think about the same thing is that religion is a middleman, and middleman just by itself is not either a good thing or a bad thing. It depends on who the middleman is. It may actually help you, depending on the middleman and your connection to the middleman, to find your divinity, to make connection with God. It could be that it diverts you. You could have a great salesperson helping you buy a used car. You could have a shyster.
Right.
It doesn't mean it's not. As I say, it's neither good nor bad. It's helped many people. It's misled many people. It really just depends on you and who that connection is coming through. You don't need the middleman. You don't have to have the middleman, but depending on the person, it could be very useful. And you will serve someone. There's no neutral ground. Like the thing, yesterday, I was actually in church yesterday, and they were saying that when you lose your faith, that you are susceptible to becoming a slave of your ego. And what all advertisers do, they're all basically saying in a 30-second ad or a 60-second ad, you have a problem. Maybe you didn't know you had this problem, but you have a problem. Right. And we can solve it. And that problem could be something about your health. It could be something about your relationship status. It could be something about, the beauty of the clothes you wear, or the car you drive around, or the lack of vacations, whatever it is. They're basically trying to set up that you have a problem, and here's the solution that you have to go work for, make money, pay for it. And that creates a kind of slavery. Right. Or fame. Like, I could be a slave to fame, where I start thinking that I'm better than other people. Which is a form of thinking of yourself as a god in a way. And so, yeah, I mean, either you're going to put your faith in your creator, I believe, or something else is going to fill that vacuum. And that something
100%.
else is what you were at least how I interpreted what you were alluding to before about the United States and the West in general, is that we have changed our God, not everybody, of course, but we have changed our God as a culture into consumerism. This was actually done after World War II, when all of the, we were coming out of the Depression. It was like an instant shot of adrenaline to the system with all the war production. And at the end of the war, a conscious decision was made to make consumerism the new religion. And it has been that way since 1945, because all those factories weren't just going to go out of business because they weren't producing tanks and guns and ships anymore. They started producing televisions and cars and refrigerators, and then they needed to come up with the perceived obsolescence, so that perfectly good clothes, a perfectly good whatever, had to be perceived as needing to be replaced. And then it was, well, how can we figure out how to make a refrigerator crap out after a certain amount of time where a person will buy another one rather than getting frustrated and not buying from us. So what's the optimum amount of time for this thing to last before it dies? And this is all part of this like hamster wheel that I think it has culminated in a very, very sick society. All we have to do is look around. I mean, I'm old enough to remember the 70s. And what people looked like in the 70s and what they look like now. They don't look healthy. And that's for a myriad of reasons. It's not just the food we're eating or the water we're drinking or the air we're breathing, but it's also what's coming in through our eyes and what's coming in through our ears.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's way more fear, way more stress, way more anxiety, way more drugs.
You can see like the dullness, of people, like their light is not turned on. It's almost like there's a shroud over it, a veil, and that veil is, constantly feeling the need to be doing something. And if you're just sitting there, well, let's scroll on my phone, and just that in itself is awful for the psyche, because what you're doing is you're opening a literal portal to anything and everybody, and you're not having any control over the type of energy that they're coming to this portal with. And you're not in control of what is coming across that screen in that portal. And so you just start to scroll, and instantly that technology behind that screen is going, okay, they stayed a little bit longer when we showed this. Let's show something similar. Let's show something similar. And it's literally just eating your energy, and is eating your attention. And it has nothing to do with finding peace or ease or fun, which is what, shockingly enough, most of the people who are scrolling are looking for. They're looking for a sense of peace. They're looking for a sense of ease. They're looking for their life to be more fun, like everybody else's appears to be on the device, And it's like you're missing the whole point that your present moment is your gift, and that you can do anything. You can, and I really love that, the whole romanticizing your life kind of movement type thing I've seen people doing, where they're like making everything super fancy for no reason. They're like, I'm going to light a candle and drink out of this fancy glass and turn on a pretty record and read my book in the sunshine. And they're like, oh, this is so romanticizing. And I'm like, this is just called life. Like, this is just like set a scene, have fun, and enjoy. Like, what do you want to do, And I think like the younger generations right now don't know what to do, because all they've seen and all they've been told to do and given from their parents from the age of 4 was a tablet and a device and scrolling YouTube and scrolling this and scrolling that. And so they don't understand, people like you and I, where we grew up in the 1900s, as my kids say, and you watched people just interact. There weren't cell phones. There was nothing to like look at or whatever, talk about in those regards. And it was, well, what are we doing? We're making some mashed potatoes right now. What are you doing? You know, like, oh, I'm going to go wander in the woods, I guess. Or I'm going to go play with a paper doll. I was telling my kids about paper dolls, and they're like, were you so poor? Like, oh my God. And I was like, no, we weren't. But like, that's just what we did. Cause like my parents weren't going to just buy, like, there weren't the toys that you could just buy for $1 here and there and everywhere at every checkout line. You know, there wasn't the endless lines of plastics and things. And so if people can just learn how to like tap into that present moment and find their own connection point, you know, and let themselves get bored, let themselves be silent for a while, I think they'd be shocked and amazed what comes up for them and how much peace you can actually find, like moving forward in life after, like I said, all that maybe garden tending gets caught up with. Because I think there's a lot of people out there not tending to the garden. They are just letting the media tell them what to think and moving on, you know. There's not a whole lot of intention going on. So really that's all I'm here for with this podcast and everything, is to just try to bring people's awareness to your own consciousness. Like you had talked about with Carl Jung. I love Carl Jung. I'm a huge fan. And I just the entire idea of, the entire idea of just like being the observer and the observed, you know, and understanding that if you can observe your mind, then you're beyond it. Mm-hmm. So what is that beyond? And let's get comfortable with that, you know, and let's try to view our entire life from this kind of almost elevated observer place, instead of being the observed that everything's happening to me. It's more of a, well, this is fun. This is an interesting experience as a human being. I know I'm so much more powerful than this one time in this one moment. And we've made it through all the other moments of eternal time so far. And we're going to continue to make it through, you know, with love, with light, and with our connected consciousness, working towards a common goal. Because if you really zoom out and look at the earth, that's really all it's trying to do. You know, it's trying to constantly create equilibrium. The clouds and the sun and the wind moves to create equilibrium. Mm-hmm. It's not doing it because it's like, I just want to fuck up this area over here. Let's blow some wind. Mm-hmm. Yep. It's going, no, there's a high pressure area. There's low pressure. Let's even this out. And we're just all trying to find that center point, find that connection, and get in flow and stay connected, you know, and stay in flow. Because when you get out of flow or cling to the side of the river, bad things happen. You know, you get redirected. You get redirected. So I feel like I'm just rambling at this point for you. All right. But tell us just a little bit more. We're a little past 30 minutes here, so we'll wrap up in the next 5 or so. Mm-hmm. But when you tell me, I guess, like, maybe either your most favorite things when you start to work with people, maybe like what they uncover or how they come to healing, and or just like what you tell people when they want to start their healing journey, but just have no idea where to start with as far as like any hypnosis and kind of getting help in that arena, I guess.
I think one of the root foundations of the work that I do is the recognition that everyone has their own internal wisdom. And through some of the factors that you were talking about, the noise of our culture, the noise of technology, and not really being taught about this, in fact, being dissuaded from accessing their inner wisdom through common phrases like "it's all in your head," "it's just a dream," "it's only your imagination." People move like as children with this rock solid connection with this deeper wisdom to thinking, well, that's weird, it's woo-woo, it's strange, I should avoid it. And then what happens is that they end up spinning inside this soup of all this noise that's coming down upon us. So I would say my favorite part of the work is in helping people access that wisdom that already lives inside of them, to unwind and solve their most painful and pressing problems. Succinctly said, that's what it is. That's the part that is the most interesting to me, that is the most empowering, is in that process. And I'll give you an example that ties into what you were talking about and we were talking about with the noise. And that is, I have a client who has a 4-year-old daughter, I think, and he was talking to me one day about how she just was having nightmares every single night. From the time that she could communicate with her parents, she would talk about nightmares every single night. And this didn't come from his internal wisdom, it happened to come from mine, but I heard kind of in my head, it's the Wi-Fi. And I said, look, I don't know if this makes any sense, but what I'm getting is you need to turn off the Wi-Fi. And as we talked about it, we realized that everything is coming across Wi-Fi, like everything. The news of what's happening in the world, horror movies, pornography, like everything, music of all kinds, everything is being broadcast in this stream that exists in your house.
Yeah, it's insane. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
So the next time I met with him, a week or so later, 10 days later, 2 weeks later, whatever it was, he said, I turned off the Wi-Fi that night. And the next morning was the first morning she woke up and had not had a nightmare.
I believe that.
And then he said there was one day in that 2-week period where he forgot to turn off the Wi-Fi and she had a nightmare. And he wasn't telling her, here's what's going on, we're going to have to turn off. No, he didn't say a word. Right. She's like 4 years old or something. 5 years old, whatever it is.
No, I think that's amazing. Because people like to think that, like brain waves or your subconscious mind or your aura or all these things, it's woo-woo, it's not real. Like you said, it's all in your head. But yet everyone's connected to Wi-Fi. And everyone just accepts that as real, And it's like, well, you literally see that it works. So why would our brain be any different? Why would our energy field be any different than any other radio signal? Microwaves, like, what are we doing? What do you mean? So yeah, I think if people can just understand, like, if you can use Wi-Fi, you can use your conscious mind, your subconscious mind, and your own awareness to do way more powerful things than whatever comes through on Wi-Fi.
Yeah. So that was a really exciting experience. And there have been numerous ones where a client's spirit guides will say something to them that becomes not only a key to their own liberation, but also this incredible insight that I get into that world by hearing what other people's spiritual guidance tells them, that flows through them. It doesn't flow through me. I mean, the example I gave you flowed through me, but there are so many, hundreds, if not thousands, of examples of other things that are coming through the clients that become like this. Wow, that's amazing. I never thought of it that way before, whatever it may have been. So that's another piece of this that continues to draw me back.
Well, and I think people don't understand that because we're because we're a drop in the ocean, basically, of consciousness, and we all have our own little droplet that we're doing, we still can, connect with others via, without talking, and the things that we say, sometimes we don't even understand why we're saying them, but the person who's listening Like, here's that. And like you said, like, it's the key to their problem, and you don't even know what their problem was to begin with, you know? I've had so many times where I've been, especially if I'm like really stuck on something, or I'm like, I need answers, please help me, whatever. It'll be like someone drives by and I hear a part of a conversation, but it's those exact words. That is the answer to what I was looking for, you know? That person in the car wasn't even talking to me, and they don't even know who I am. But those words were actually the key to what I just needed. And now I'm going to go do that thing, you know? And that's how these signs work. And that's how a lot of times the universe does speak to us, is through other people. And I think we're really quick to discount that. And we really need to just tune into each other a little bit more and really listen and see what we come up with. So
I agree, and I believe that a huge piece of the word faith is trusting your own internal wisdom. Is trusting that your dream had an important meaning or reason why you had the dream. Is trusting that the intuition that you have is not just a figment of imagination. That imagination itself is probably your most important power. And we see the evidence everywhere. People, say, oh, isn't it incredible that we can fly in an airplane? Well, where did that come from? We didn't have these hundreds of years ago. Exactly. Where did the MRI machine come that revealed some kind of underlying medical situation that maybe saved a person's life? Where does your house come, like the heating in your house or running water? It all came from somebody's imagination. And yet we have to overcome all of that other stuff that I said before. It's all in your head. It's just a dream. It's only your imagination. We have to recognize that when the composer hears a melody in his or her head, it's real at that moment. It doesn't have to be written on sheet music. It doesn't have to be played on a piano. It's real the instant that they hear it in their mind. And it's the same with you.
Right.
The moment or the instant something happens inside of your mind, it is real at that moment. And you've got to stand back in your power that you have this ability.
Right.
And not let other people kind of cause you to push it aside, to disregard it.
Right. Which can happen so easily, and it can happen on accident even. And then you do one thing and another, and then 6 years later, you're on a totally different path than what you intended, And so I think it is so important to be aware of all of those things as it's happening, and to recognize that, the images that you're given, that your specific human body and mind is given, is meant for you. And that it's something that if it wouldn't come up if it wasn't already in the collective. If it wasn't already in the collective consciousness trying to come through, it's just, it's meant for you. If it's in your brain, it's meant for you. I like when you said, like, just a composer, like when they hear it in their head, it's real then, because it's so true, and it's so easy to discount other things. But when you put it that way, I really love that reframe. So thank you for that.
Oh, sure.
With that, we will wrap up. Tell us where we can find you. If anyone wants to work with you or see more of the stuff that you do, where can they find that?
Easy. BlueSkyHypnosis.com to connect with me. And Blue Sky Hypnosis on YouTube for a lot of content. 270 some odd pieces of content are on there that you can play around with, and obviously it costs you nothing.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I'll put those links in the show notes and stuff as well, so people can find those there. And thank you so much for coming on today and discussing all the fun things of consciousness and connection and just our spiritual lives. So I appreciate you so much. Thank you for coming on.
You're welcome, and thanks for having me.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. It was so great to get to know Peter and have him on the podcast and just be able to talk about how much, these practical sciences, modern day sciences like hypnotherapy, that they've been studying and saying, oh, this works. It goes hand in hand with these ancient practices that are thousands of years old that we really don't need the scientific proof behind, because the lived experience is the scientific proof. The doing the steps and then feeling the immediate results, that's all the proof you need as little scientists. We're just our own little scientists doing our own experiments in our own life, and then taking note of those experiences and then moving forward from a more informed and conscious place. So yeah, I just really, really loved this conversation, and it really reminds me as well, kind of what we were talking about a few weeks ago with Yoga Nidra, where we're really working with that subconscious mind to bypass the conscious mind and to program on that deeper level so that it's easier to make positive change in our conscious living, waking life. So yeah, I just love when things like these just align together so well, and they speak the same language and they're saying the same thing, but just through different modes. And so, yeah, I think one of just the beautiful silver linings, and it's not even silver lining, that's usually put with a bad thing, but one of the great things I love about this podcast is the ability to show how much everything is interconnected and how much we are all just talking about the same thing when we are talking about spiritual wellness, God, subconscious, conscious, universal energy, all of these things. We have so much verbiage for it, but it's all across religions, across philosophies, across practices. But we're all talking about the same thing. And so I think that's a really beautiful part to remember, that we are all working towards the same love, the same light, the same source energy, and we're all in it together. So with that, one light, one love, my friends. Thank you for being here. Please, please, please go ahead and rate, review, and subscribe or follow the show if you feel so inclined. If this has helped you at all and you feel like you have gotten any value from this, I would love it if you would rate, review, and subscribe. Even just rating. You don't even have to review. Even just, click 4 or 5 stars. 5 stars if you feel generous. But that's just a suggestion. But for real, any sort of rating or review is helpful. Helps people find my podcast and helps us make those little changes that we need to see in both our own lives and the world. So yeah, with that, have a great week, my friends, and I'll see you next week. Bye. Om Loka Samista Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om